Hi, my name's Ron Valenzia, and this is a short tutorial on getting your TD17 hooked up to the wire harness and then to the drums themselves. Okay, first of all, if you notice on the back, there is sort of, I guess they call this a serial input from the old computer printer days, way back in the day. And here is the wire harness that comes with the TD17. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is connect the two. So first of all, you want to make sure that it aligns to to the side in here. What I do is I line up where it's a little bit smaller here to make sure that it's the right way. Plus, it's always going to feed out of the back of the unit. So this is connecting the harness to the drum module. It's a brand new harness. I had a problem with my first harness that lasted me many, many years, but I did not do something properly. I didn't pack it away properly, so it pulled one of the wires and was not working properly. One of the wires wasn't. So I'm replacing it with a brand new one, and it seems to be working well. So now that's how simple it is, and I hand tightened this. I would not use any kind of a tool or anything like that. You don't want these to break. You want to keep these in good shape, but it is very, very sturdy. It is rock solid. So now let's put it on the drums. Let's put it, focus on the drums here, and then how I route them. So I've got the harness here. And the cool thing about the Roland harnesses, they do a really good job of separating the ones that you're going to need earlier than others. Now, that's obviously when the drum module is over on your hi-hat side. So here's what I'm going to do. They are labeled, so that makes life a lot easier. So it's a little bit hard to read, but you can see that there is a T1 on this, and this is tom-tom 1. So there's a little input on the side of the drum. I'll just show it to you real quick on the one, and then you'll understand that it's the same on every other one. So that's where the input is. And I like to keep my toms kind of level with one another. That's close for now. Close enough for now. So this one strand here, that was tom-tom 1. This is tom 2. And then we've got a few more. They put this little cap on here, which I really appreciate. That helps keep this in good shape if you're traveling with it, if you're taking this kit on the road or anything like that. I think that that's pretty important. And this is for tom 3. And right now I'm running the cables just outside of the rack. I did not want to put that inside the rack just yet. You'll see. And then I have ride cymbal, and then ride bell. So this is ride cymbal. I'm going to put it in here, and then the ride bell, which is interesting, but that's the way it goes. All right. So now with these cables, with this set, and like I said, this set is a little bit separated from that line. And for good reason. The first cable that you're going to come up with is going to be hi-hat, which is the cymbal up here. So I'm going to put that in. And now what's happening, what you can't see, and I'm going to show it to you in a second here. I'm going to take the top off here, stiff here. So what I'm going to do is, oh my gosh, took a little bit of effort. So Roland in this series particularly put these connections inside where the pole is, where the mount is. So it's impossible to fit that in there when it's attached. So you have to attach it first, then place it on, and then voila. So it's not a terribly inconvenient thing, but it is something that you know, like if you're doing a gig and you're gonna tear this down, you might want to consider a way to have the wires attached to the stand itself, where there won't be any tug or pull or on anything like that, or any kind of bending on there. So you want to make sure that that's done properly so you don't damage it, because that's exactly what I did. I did kind of ruin a wire by not following my own directions. So this one is for the snare drum. This one is kind of on its own. Did you notice that? So this one is going to be for crash cymbal right, which actually, no, it's crash cymbal left. My apologies. Then this one is going to be most likely, oh, this is for the kick drum. Boom. And this is for the hi-hat control over here. Now, if you've noticed, there is one pad that needs to be plugged in here and one here. So the next one is this crash cymbal. So I'm going to place this. So I use the 90 degrees, the angled input to put in the cymbal. And then I'm going to run the cable on the outside, and I'm going to put it where it says crash in our auxiliary triggers. Okay, so there you go. The wires are now set. All right, so now that we have the wires all plugged in, I wanted to explain a few things and what I did with the back of the unit. So the crash cymbal, obviously the crash cymbal on the right side of the drum set, the drummer's right, would be plugged in here, and the floor tom, I plugged it into here. Now I purposely use different size cords because it's easier to figure out which one's which on the other side. So the thicker cable is definitely the tom-tom, and the thinner one is the crash. But they're really virtually the same thing. They're both at stereo plug. So then we've got our two outputs, which I'm going to plug in a few seconds to our amplifier so we can monitor the sounds a little bit. And then obviously our headphone jack, our auxiliary input, and our MIDI is right here. The auxiliary input, I don't use it that much anymore. I haven't used it in a while. And the reason is because the Bluetooth in this, it's a Bluetooth, this has Bluetooth receiver capabilities. So it works seamlessly. So I have not needed to do anything outside of that. And as you can see, the harness is plugged in properly and hand tightened here. And then obviously this little peg is what mounts it to the stand. So I'm going to put that back on the stand. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit. All right, so I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to put that in the stand. Then I'm going to plug in the amplifier that I have. There's a lot of different amplifiers you can get. I'm just using a little Bose speaker for this video. It's going to be plenty loud enough to do what I need it to do. All right, so now that we have everything plugged in, here I'm just going to give you a sample of the sounds. We're going to turn it on. There we go. Giving it a second. The knobs, I always have them pointing up at 12 o'clock when I start, except for the volume. I keep that all the way down. The Bluetooth lit only because I have a device on in the area that it's already attaching to. But so that will happen to you once you've paired your devices. All right, so just so you can hear the pads as they are, our snare drum pad, I'm going to move this out of the way. So I've got the snare pad. And yeah, if you hit the rim here, you get like a rim shot kind of sound. Hi-hat pedal, first of all. There you go. Let's hi-hat pedal. I don't have the wires very neatly stacked at this moment, but I will do that a little bit later. Hi-hat, pad, and then if you hold the pedal down. Okay, very simple. Tom-tom 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we have crash cymbal left, crash cymbal right, and ride cymbal. By the way, the ride there's 3 basic areas that you can make sound. So you've got your typical ride cymbal sound here. You can make it a ride crash by hitting the rim of the cymbal. and then you got the dome. Okay, so that's the really, really great thing about using this particular ride. Now, a lot of drummers don't use 4 tom-toms. They use this fourth one as maybe a clap or a tambourine or some other kind of percussion equipment. You can do that type of thing with this fourth pad. You can do anything you want. As a matter of fact, you can move it anywhere in the kit that makes sense to you. Now, I just left it here because I use it as a tom mostly. And then if I wanted a clap, I could play both at the same time. So I can be like, you see how I'm hitting the snare drum and this tom at the same time? If that was a clap sound, that's what it would do. I also use this sound as a another crash cymbal or splash. Okay, so again, this can be whatever you assign it to be, okay? So it's up to you. All right, so now let's dig into the actual module. All right, the TD17 module with the key that I don't need there. All right, so obviously you've got your nice screen over here. You've got this rotary dial, which is really helpful to move a little bit faster, and you have several buttons here. And you've got these buttons over here, which are really kind of important, and some lights over here. I'll explain all of this to you really quick. So first of all, the power button over here on the top left-hand side, that is obviously the first thing you'll do. The second thing you might want to do is, try things out and see if it works the way you like it. But when you're in drum kit mode, if you hit setup, you've got a few options. Like, first of all, you've got your Bluetooth option. This is where you would go in to connect your Bluetooth device or devices. And I find that it's easier to just connect one device and use that device whenever you want to play along with something. So I use particularly an iPad. I don't put my phone on there, but that's just a personal choice, obviously. SD card, you can get an SD card for this unit, and you can save all your drum sets, and you can do factory updates and all kinds of things with the SD card. Then you've got your bass and treble settings, your basic settings. Pad settings. This is something that you might want to learn about. Okay, so this shows what pads are actually plugged in right now. I'm going to adjust this one because that's not correct. It's actually the PDX8, and this is the 6. You can see that oh yeah, I went the wrong way. So there's the 6. Hi-hat is fine. And then the snare is a PDX8. The kick drum is a KD9. So all of that is correct. The hi-hat, that is correct. The crash is also correct. Let's see what this is. This is a 13. Let's see if this has a 13. There it is, 13 ride. And then auxiliary is actually a PDX8. Let me see if I can find that for you real quick and assign it. There you go, PDX8, there you go. It's all set up. Okay, now this stores automatically. You don't have to like hit a save button, but what I would do is go into, the device and save everything to the SD card once you put that in there. Well, once you put in an SD card, you'll have to format it first, and then you can save everything to it. So right now, when we went into the setup menu, it went to, there's 3 basic buttons that you can go through, or 3 different menus that within that button that you can pick. Type is the type of pad that's plugged in, so that's already accurate. This is your basic stuff. This is really some of the important stuff that you might want to mess with. Like, let's say you're just not getting enough sensitivity from your snare drum. So there's 2 ways you can do it. Number 1, you can just hit the snare drum. And did you notice that the light changed over here to SN for snare 1? So if I hit a tom-tom, you'll see that it'll move. Tom-tom 2, tom-tom 3. So back to snare. So if you just play the instrument that you want to edit, that's all you would do. And now I can change the sensitivity for that particular pad. If I wanted to make it a little bit easier to trigger, I would turn it all the way up or something like that. Now, the problem with turning it all the way up is that you lose the dynamic control. So I like to keep it as low as possible. That will absolutely trigger. And I'll let you hear the dynamics. Okay, so you probably heard a lot of the banging of the actual pad itself too in this particular mic. but yeah, don't worry about that. So the threshold, I only use this threshold if I had problems with hitting another drum. If I was hitting like a tom-tom and the snare was triggering at the same time, then I would use the threshold to be like, okay, I don't want it to trigger unless I hit it a little bit harder. So that's basically what the threshold is. So I leave it at 1 or 2. You'll notice that on the toms, I leave it at 1 or 2. Tom is 7-2, 7-2, 7-2, 7-2 for that last one over there. Oh, which is a cymbal right at the moment. The curve is basically it's how you want the dynamics to react. The best way I can explain this to you is honestly, you just have to trial and error. So linear is the most, I would say, the most accurate to a live drum set player. I'm going to go back to pad settings, sorry. So I would leave it at linear. So I'm going to go back to snare drum. Now, let's say you didn't want to hit the drum to change what pad that you wanted to work on. So let's say you wanted to work on the snare drum pad. You can use this button and it'll scroll through all of your pad choices. So now we're on snare drum and I didn't have to play the pad. So you just use this little button here. It's pad select and lock and hold. So if you press it down and hold for a few seconds, it'll lock everything in place. I've never used that thing. I don't think it's really all that important. Ambience is with each drum set. Oh, wait a minute. Let me finish this. So advanced, this is where you get really, really technical. And here's the thing. For most drummers, this is extra stuff. This just gets in the way of you having fun and producing. Only when you have issues, that is when you go into these. Scan times is to how fast that you want to be able to play the snare drum without it, deadening the sound or whatever. Re-trigger, cancel, mask times, like crosstalk. That is what we talked about earlier. That also is kind of threshold a little bit. So basically, if I hit a specific pad that's close to it, if I hit like a snare pad or a tom pad that's close to the snare, and you hear the snare triggering, then you want to play with the cancel button here, the crosstalk cancel. So then you would raise that number and it would be less likely to trigger. So if that number is at 0, it means it is very, very sensitive and that any other pad hit could potentially trigger that. Then we're going to go into rim. This is your rim control. Again, these are like advanced stuff that most people don't want to play with. Only if you really need to do people get involved in that. Okay, so Bluetooth we talked about. Hi-hat settings. Again, this is the same thing. The hi-hat setting is set perfectly right now for the average drummer. But if you're noticing that it's not really feeling the same or comfortable with you, then you would use the hi-hat pedal here, and you can see where I'm moving the hi-hat pedal up and down, and it's monitoring it right here. If you're pressing it down and it's not going all the way down to the bottom, that's when you want to start messing with the sensitivity here. I have not had to do that ever since I bought the machine, because Roland kind of presets it for everybody, and it just works, so it's a win-win. So I exited out to go back to the main menu, which is just the drum set menu. A couple of things about this menu that you need to know. This is for cross stick. Look, the cross stick on these type of drums at this level doesn't work 100%. It does work, but it doesn't work 100%. So that's just something that you want to, if you really feel that it's important for you to have the cross stick in there, then you would go in and edit that. Mix volume. This is the audio in, which could be the 1/8 inch input, or it could also be Bluetooth. This is the click volume, because there is a metronome in here. And then the song volume, if you've programmed a song or if you want to play along with a song in here, there are some things in here. You've got coach and song. We'll get there in a few seconds. And then a guide track. So we'll go over that in detail in a few seconds here. So let's just say you want to play along with click track just to improve your timing. You would just click on the track here, and then you click the on button. Okay, and then you heard it just click in here. And this sets the tempo of whatever tempo you want to practice. Okay. Now, there's other things that you could do with this, and I'm not going to go through every single feature. That would be a 2-hour video, but you can come in here and change, like, let's say the time signature, the sound of the metronome. You can change that to something that's a little bit more pleasing or whatever that works for you. And then again, you've got this mix volume that we were already in once. There it is again. So that's it. So coach, you can go in and you can do a couple of things. You can play along with a click track and it'll give you kind of like a percentage of how well you did. Quiet count, where it just gives you like the click, but in a blinking light. In the warm-ups, it kind of shows you a couple of little things in here. That is stuff, again, it's useful stuff, but to go over it in this video right here, that would be, like I said, it would be an hour-long video. Song, there are preloaded songs in here. So if you wanted to play along and have some fun, you now notice these buttons down here. This is a record button. This is a start and stop button. That's where you would get into the song. So you get to play along with that, okay? So once you hit that button there, you can play along. And there's a bunch of programmed songs in there. Right now there is, it looks like 7. So you got 7 songs in there. You can, if you attach this to your computer, you can go into Roland and download a few more, I believe. So you can mess with that. This is, again, getting into more of the advanced part, which is not what this video is intended for. So we're going to get out of that. We're going to talk about these buttons real quick, even though this is easy. Ambience is really basically, there's a reverb setting on all of the drum kits have some kind of reverb setting. So the ambience is how much of that reverb do you want? Do you want none of it so it sounds like you're in a dry studio? Or do you want to sound like you're in a concert hall? You would turn it all the way up. I usually start in the middle and just leave it. Like I like a little bit of ambience or reverb, but I don't need it to oversaturate the sounds, Bass and treble, this is, these are obvious features. I leave them at 12 o'clock unless there is an issue. If you're playing on a very small speaker and you're using the kick drum, just recognize that you might distort the speaker because you're sending such a strong, powerful bass signal to the small speaker. So to remedy that, you can just turn your bass down here and that will get rid of the distortion in most cases, unless you're just running it so hot. If you're not hearing, like, let's say the high end, the attack of the drums as well, then you can use the treble here. That's very, very helpful. Your volume is going to control not only your headphone volume, but your outs here, your stereo outputs over here. So that's those 4 buttons. The assign button is probably the most common sense one. Let's say we wanted to change the snare drum settings. So I'm going to use the pad select, and I'm going to scroll all the way back to snare where I just was, just so you get remember that. And then here's the level. Assign button, and now we can scroll through the different snare drums, the different snare drum actions that you have. So I can go through this snare. Okay, so you can just pick whichever snare drum you want to do. This button and this button kind of changes like what category or what sound within it, so forth. So I usually just leave it up here so you can scroll through everything that you need to go through. Okay. So the snare drum is the category. So exit out. So that is the assign button. That's how you change the sounds on each of the pads. The level button is a common sense button. Whatever pad is selected here, that's the volume you control. Like if I want to hear the snare a lot louder in that particular kit, it does save this via kit. So every kit can be different. So the snare level in this particular kit, I want it, let's say I want it at 1.3 or whatever. You would play along. If that feels comfortable, then you move on, and then so forth. Again, you can, within this, you can select all the drum pads and then basically go through all of them and adjust the volume as needed. User sample. So I put a few user samples in here. So if you don't update to the latest firmware, or not the firmware, but the latest sound sources, you can use some of these already built-in sounds that I programmed in. These are custom sounds that I use that really, really sound fantastic. So it's just your call, up to you. Tuning, that's common sense. If I let's go to a tom sound. So I'm going to pick that tom, but let's say I want to tune it up or tune it way down. Okay. So that's basically it. And remember, all of your sounds, yeah, all of your sounds are saved per kit. So it won't necessarily affect every single kit. That's not what we're doing here. Muffling is common sense, but I'm going to show you what it does because it's really, really important that you understand it. So this is muffling for this. This is snare drum. So if you turn the muffling on, you've got as if you were to put a piece of tape on it. For an acoustic drum set, this is thicker tape and really thick tape. It's really hard to hear via this video, I'm sure. That's probably the best extreme I can show you, is going all the way to 7 here. Just know that there are nuances. Here's off, has a long ring to it, and then tape 7 has a little bit more of a dead sound. Donut, same type of thing. Same thing as the tape, but a donut is really going to deaden the sound a lot. I like my snare drum just kind of like without it, because I can control a lot of things with that, so I don't need that muffling all the time. Now, other button. The other button is really, really important. This is the one that that can help you with your SD card. It can help you with your overall sound of the kit and a lot of other features. So you've got your ambience mode. You can select what type of ambience you want in there, what kind of reverb, and so forth. It gets a little bit deep into here. So really, honestly, if you just change the ambient sound per kit, that's kind of what I would use. But to me, it's not worth the time to go through and dig through everything to change every little detail. That is the reverb, but again, the ambience is basically a reverb as well. It's basically the same thing for us for now. Multi effects. This is like if there is a delay, it's not on right now, but it is now. I don't know. Yeah, it's very hard to hear through the system I'm doing right now. Kit compressor, sorry. So this is kind of important, but again, it's already preset to match whatever you're going to do. This is like really advanced stuff. Pad EQ, same thing. It's not stuff that you really need to mess with. Volume control, kit volume. What if one kit sounds a lot louder than the next one and you're doing a live gig, you want to level out the sounds, that's where you would go to level out the sounds. Okay, if I go down another level, this is the name of the kit. You can name it whatever you want to make sure that you recognize it right away. I typically rename a few kits, but not a lot. MIDI note numbers, you don't need to worry about that. That's for another time. Copy. This is I use this a lot because when I edit some of the factory settings, I prefer to copy let's say I wanted to edit one of the factory presets called Big Room, but I didn't want to change that and not have that again. Like I wanted to come back to it, but I wanted to just make 1 or 2 edits, but I wanted to come back to it. So then you go into your user. You can see that I have some of my favorite kits that I renamed with my name. But you see where it says user kit, and it's just a number over here on the left hand side. Let's say if you wanted to edit Big Room, but you didn't want to destroy or change the factory set that it did. So then you would just hit execute and hit enter. And now you can go in and change Big Room without changing what the factory set up for you. So you always have that good base. And that's what I find is really important, is always having the basic settings there for you and then make your changes as needed. So again, we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but I feel that might be somewhat important. So let's go back into the menu that we were just in. So that's the copy of a kit. So it's a drum set and it says copy. Save and load. Once you get your SD card, there's an SD card input right over here on the left-hand side of the device, and you would go ahead and save to the card. Or like, let's say you purchase a drum set online and you wanted to load it from the card to the device. You can actually do that. If I'm not mistaken, this button here is really for the entire let's see, user sample. Oh, the user sample stuff. So that can get kind of heavy. That's a type of user sample. That's what I had to do to put in all the samples. Again, that's getting into the weeds. Okay, so that's really it as far as your main things. I'm going to scroll through one more time just to make sure that we covered a lot. All right, so if we go into MIDI, it's not something you need to mess with unless you're, living in the 1990s, because MIDI is still used, but it's in a different form nowadays. It's not by the MIDI cable anyway. This is for your screen right here. This is your USB input. This is for your auto offsetting. So if you wanted it to turn off after 30 minutes of not being used or whatever, it says here is 4 hours. So it just turns it off for you. No big deal. System information. This is always good because it tells you what program that you're currently using. We're in 2.10 and then the 40, whatever that is. So when Roland puts out a new update, a new firmware, you can actually load that onto the SD card and put it in here, and then there's a way to get that in here. Factory reset. Let's say you don't like any of the stuff that I've done, and you want to start over the exact same way that this came out of the box from Roland. You would hit factory reset. Now, the good news is you will get everything exactly the way Roland sent it to you. The bad news is I've already fine-tuned this to feel like a drum set for, I would imagine, most drummers, if not all drummers, will like that. So just realize that if you go to factory reset, you're back to the Roland set, and then it could be a little bit of an issue. Now, the workaround could be that you save everything with the SD card. Like if you go in here, save or back up the entire thing. So there's, oh, by the way, that's where your format is. I think you saw how I did that. I went over to SD card. And when you get an SD card, the first thing you're gonna need to do is format the card. So then you would scroll down, hit enter, and then you would get that in there. But then you would save a backup of everything. And then if you don't like something, you can always call it back. If you do a system update. Remove license. I have no idea. Factory reset. Reset with news. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. To be honest with you, I've never dug into that. No idea what that can do. Fast and slow. This is for when you're playing along with a song or coach. Like we're playing along with a song here. I can slow it down. Okay, I know that was kind of loud for me. I hope it wasn't too loud for the video. But that's what this is tempo. And you can see the speed, the percentage of the tempo that I was adjusting along the way. So I'm going to put this back at 100, just make sure that it stays the same. But that's all this is. Okay, so with that being said, you have full use of the basic stuff that you'll ever need from the module. You likely will never need anything more than what I've just shown you. All right, well, with that said, enjoy. I hope you have a great time with this. If you have any questions or if you have any comments, if you have any of your own thoughts about it, like suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. We can all learn from each other. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a good time. Bye-bye.